The Vancouver Canucks take a stranglehold on the Nashville Predators with a 4-3 come-from-behind victory in Game 4 in Nashville. A hat trick from Brock Boeser. Artur Silovs making his NHL playoff debut, recording his first ever NHL playoff win. Eddie Lack will join me soon, as well as Jeff Paterson from Nashville. This is Rink Wide Vancouver. What is going on, Vancouver Canucks fans? Yes, the Vancouver Canucks are one game away from punching their ticket to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Rink Wide Vancouver, presented by Applewood Auto Group. Ford, Nissan, Kia, Infiniti, Mitsubishi, and Chevrolet. Their website is applewood.ca. It's all good at Applewood. Rink Wide Vancouver studio. We're in the lower lobby of the Wall Center Hotel in downtown Vancouver. Now, if you're thinking about wedding space, the Wall Center can meet your every need, from small family gatherings to big, bold weddings and receptions. Consider the Wall Center if you're looking for wedding and reception space. Email sales@wallcenter.com. What a day, what a wild day if you were a Canucks fan leading up to this game, and it's only 5:28 local time here in Vancouver. The Canucks began the day having to start their third goalie in 4 games this series in Artur Silovs, who made 27 saves. Casey DeSmith, a little banged up. I expect him to be back for Game 5. That game's a couple days away. We're here to talk about Game 4. Vancouver started off strong. Brock Boeser opened the scoring in the game. 13th time they've done that this season in the regular season and the playoffs. And then, well, the wheels fell off a little bit for the Vancouver Canucks. They go down 3-1 heading into the third period. Now, in that third period, that's where things started to get a little bit better for the Vancouver Canucks. Brock Boeser tying the game, 2 late goals in the third period, sending the game into overtime. And in overtime, Elias Lindholm acquired on January 31st in a trade for Andrei Kuzmenko. I don't know if a lot of people will be talking about that trade anymore. It seems to be paying dividends for the Vancouver Canucks. Elias Lindholm with his second goal of the series. The win for the Vancouver Canucks in Nashville, now up 3-1 on the Predators, with a chance to close out this series here in Vancouver on Tuesday in Game 5. So much to get to, a lot to talk about. We have Eddie Lack joining me any second now, and we'll also have Jeff Paterson in the second half of the show, who is in Nashville. Will be going into the dressing room. He'll be talking to a lot of the players as well as the head coach. So going to love to hear from Jeff Paterson, what he has to say on this game. But as I promised, let's bring in Eddie Lack. He's presented by Great Clips. He's part of our Great Clips chat line. Your time is valuable. Use the Great Clips check-in app to see the wait time, check it on your phone, and get your haircut when you want. For more information, check out greatclips.com. Great Clips. It's going to be great. Eddie, what's good, my friend? How are you?
Irf, I thought this was going to be like a sad story and a sob story. We're going to sit here and just complain about all the players, and look where we are now. We're having an Aperol Spritz for the guys, and like your life is good again.
All right, Drunk Eddie, I can't wait to see how this goes in the next 15 or 20 minutes. But Eddie, let's start in all seriousness with the way the day started for the Vancouver Canucks. Their third goalie they're using in 4 games in this series. So right off the bat, there's an angst among the fan base and angst among the players. If you're in that room and you're kind of hearing about it and you've been in this position before, you're the goalie, what's going through your mind?
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of just trying to prepare yourself as best as you can. And it's obviously different when you hear it the same day, and you don't go through like the butterflies the day before and you sleep on and everything. It's kind of just happening, right? So sometimes that's good too, I think. So he's obviously showed, like, he played like 4 or 5 games in the regular season, and I saw him here when they played the Coyotes here as well. So he looked good then, and I thought he looked good today as well.
A lot of people in our YouTube chat are screaming about the comeback, and this is kind of the identity of this team. They bend, but they don't break. We talked about this team and kind of how the wheels fell off a bit in this game, but Brock Boeser, there's so much talk about this guy. In the offseason, him having the meeting with Patrick Allvin saying he doesn't want to be traded, a 40-goal scorer, now scoring goals in the playoffs. What more can we say about a guy who, for some part of his career, thought that he was going to be traded at every trade deadline out of Vancouver?
Yeah, I mean, he started his career so hard in Vancouver too, and then obviously with his dad and everything that he's been through. I mean, to see a guy like that just like push through the adversity and stuff. I mean, that's just the kind of guy that you're just like really super happy for, right? And for him to get three in one game in a playoffs, I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, you first Canuck playoff hat trick since 1996, and Trevor Linden went and did that. I want to pull a graphic up here because Artur Silovs was showed after the first intermission, or kind of during the first intermission of the hockey game. And you mentioned that this was probably a good thing for him to go in there and be able to get right in right away. But what's he thinking in that moment? He's sitting there. He's got the ice pack on his head. What's going through his mind?
I don't know. He's probably just like focusing on like the next save, right? and there's so much. I mean, just like 4 or 5 days ago, I mean, he was the third guy, and now he's playing. It's just, I mean, things happen so fast in the sport, and to see him go in and just have like a stellar good game, I mean, it's definitely something to build on.
Yeah, when you look at it from a Vancouver Canucks perspective, you head into this game, you go down 3-1, but Silovs played well. And for the first 2 periods of this hockey game, Eddie, he wasn't the problem. When they lost a hockey game in Game 3 in Vancouver, DeSmith in Game 2, DeSmith wasn't the issue. It was everyone else around him. Now, I know that you tweeted, I tweeted, a lot of people were flooding the tweet saying that this one isn't on the goalie, it's on everyone else. But they were right through 40 minutes. So what was your assessment of the Canucks play through the first 40 minutes of the game?
I mean, they were flat. I mean, even when they were down 3-1 and it was like 5 minutes left, I mean, they were flat. I'm the first one to admit, I mean, I did not see this comeback coming. And then like you get the second goal, and then Nashville hits the post with the open netter, right? And everything just kind of clicked for them to come back and win it. But yeah, I mean, the team did not look very engaged through the first 55 minutes, but they found a way to get it done. And I think that's what shows what a good team they are too. I mean, good teams find a way to win, even though you maybe don't have your A game.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we're going to talk about a guy in a little bit that who's definitely not having his A game right now. But
I know exactly who you're talking about.
So does the entire fan base. So does the entire National Hockey League. I think everyone's kind of wondering what's going on with him right now. But let's focus on this win, because the Brock Boeser goal to make it 3-2, they pulled the extra guy out. Saros is there. Elias Lindholm gets that puck and be able to have the man advantage for him to get that puck and see his vision to find Brock Boeser there. It's one of those things when you look at Brock, he's got 16 goals on the power play, he had 40 goals on the regular season, but a lot of them come into those dirty areas. And I think when you look at Brock, Eddie, you have to agree that his hands are a little bit underrated for what he's able to do in tight, no?
Yeah, 100%. And like when I look at him like play, that's something that I think that he works on a lot in practice and everything, right? And obviously to score 40, you have a really, really good shot, and he's always had a good shot, but the tips and the hands in tight and everything is something that I don't think we talk enough about.
No, we definitely don't. And then on the tying goal, he kind of gets in that area, is diving for the puck in and around Saros. I mean, if you're the Nashville Predators, what has to be going through your mind? You were basically a minute or 2 minutes away from tying this series, and now you have to head to Vancouver here for Game 5 on Tuesday and stave off elimination.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a momentum killer for them too, right? Like you played a really good Game 3 at home and you lose, and then you play a really good Game 4 at home and you're up 3-1 with a couple minutes to go and you still lose, right? I mean, it's just one of those things. Like, if you can't win when you bring your A game and now you're going back to Vancouver again, in my mind, the series is over in the next game or two. Yeah, probably in the next game, but yeah.
Oh, for sure. You have all the momentum coming back into Vancouver. You know that building's going to be buzzing. They've had parties and playoff parties in that building while the games were on the road. So you obviously know how great that building can go. These highlights here, obviously, you can see courtesy of Sportsnet. But another thing I wanted to get to as well, a guy that took a lot of flack in the late stages of this season for his play. They acquired him on January 31st in a trade. Andrei Kuzmenko went the other way. You know him pretty well, and that's Elias Lindholm, right? He gets hurt. He misses a bunch of games before the end of the regular season, ends up getting back into the lineup. Rick Tocchet said after Game 1, this is why you acquire him, for games like this. And obviously, Eddie, here, it's definitely paying off for him.
No, exactly. I mean, I don't want to pump myself up too much, but I gave him a few hugs when he was here in town, and we talked a little bit about everything, and he told me that he'd be back for the playoffs, and just super excited about it. I mean, fans and media, and like, I'm on the fan side now too, right? But like, we're so quick to judge players, like when they first get traded or signed. Like, it takes a little bit to get used to your new players and the power play and everything, and like the system, etc. Right? So I always thought that Lindy was going to be a great fit for the Canucks. I just didn't know if they were going to have enough time with his injury and everything to like get to know each other well enough, like before the playoffs started and everything. So
no, for sure. And I think that he provides a different dynamic to this team. There was so much talk about how there wasn't much secondary scoring, and now he's kind of on the pseudo second, third line with Connor Garland and Dakota Joshua. And, he's a guy that Rick Tocchet has the ability to move up and down the lineup. So I think the flexibility is definitely there for him. Okay, we've talked a lot of positive. Let's talk about the guy that, the writing's on the wall for this guy and Elias.
I need a drink.
Probably about halfway through that one. I definitely know if I know you well as I do, Eddie. When you look at his play from the beginning of the series, and I guess from the month leading into it, where can you pinpoint how things aren't there? Because from the outside looking in, it's just a guy that looks like he's lost his confidence. I mean, you're a player, you've played. When you lose your confidence, is it really hard to regain?
Yes, but he's also a guy that makes so much money. He's on the first line. He's on the first power play and everything. I mean, like, you're going to get every single chance to regain that confidence, right? So, like, I don't know. He just looks like disengaged. Like the Elias Lindholm that I know when he plays his best game, I mean, he's so noticeable out there, and like, you see him in every single little situation, right? And that guy shoots the puck whenever he gets the chance. I mean, like, you saw, I don't know if it was the second or the third game. It may have been all the games, but like, he's looking for that pass first mentality, and that's not him. I mean, he's got such a good shot. He's just got to shoot the biscuit and just use it.
No, absolutely. And I think that that's the biggest thing, right? You know, there's a lot of talk about when he signed the contract and how big it was, and pressure, you know, comes with pressure, right? The contract hasn't even kicked in yet, to be
No.
completely honest. So that's another thing that's going to add to some stress, but you can mask it if you win the hockey game. Obviously, in losses, it takes much of the brunt of the equation here. All right, Eddie, back to the goalies. Silovs now has a win. DeSmith has a win, probably plays in game 5. I know what the answer is, but do you think Rick Tocchet and Ian Clark are even thinking to go back to Arthur Silovs here in Vancouver for game 5?
No, I think the play is you just go on how the Smith feels, right? And can he practice tomorrow? Can he practice on Tuesday? Yeah, then you might go back with him. But yeah, I mean, you don't want to take any risks with him being hurt for a longer period of time and having to play lack eventually in the playoffs. but no, it's if the Smith is 100%, I mean, you go with him. But if he's not 100%, I mean, you're going with the Silovs again.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at it, you know, he's the 5th Latvian goalie to play a playoff game in the NHL. You know, he got Lafayette's first ever medal at the World Championships. Like, he's a guy that has played in some big games. So from my perspective, you know, going in, giving DeSmith the day off, knowing that he could possibly play game 5. I mean, it was out there saying that he could have played with the injury. So if he's good enough to be the e-bug, Eddie, as he was in game 4, then obviously he's well enough to probably start game 5.
No, exactly. And yeah, I think that's going to be the case here, Casey.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that if you're the Canucks, you know, you're lucky, right? That's another rest day for Thatcher Demko as well, who we know won't play in this series. But if you can end this series on Tuesday, I mean, and you hope the other series are going long as well, that's definitely some more rest, and that's the key, especially for guys that look like they're battling with something out there, like their captain, Quinn Hughes, who is taking a beating from the Nashville Forwards, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to do whatever you can not to go back to Nashville. I mean, you got two wins here, yeah, but like, you haven't played your best games in Nashville either, right? So you lose game 5. There's a pretty good chance that you're coming back to Vancouver for game 7, and that's something that you want to avoid, because game 7, I mean, everything can happen, right? So yeah.
Goaltender's perspective, right? Silovs comes in, he makes his NHL playoff debut. He probably wants to have one of those goals back. Maybe 2 of them. You can't pin him on every single one of the goals, but he goes in, he comes to the bench. His team your team goes up 3-2, or your team, sorry, gets it to 3-2. What's going through his mind when the team ties the game and he knows it goes into overtime? In that intermission, what do you think he's thinking?
I don't know. He's just, I mean,
all right, Eddie, I think your connection is also having some of your Aperol Spritz. So we'll try and get you back here into the show. But as I was saying, you know, Arthur Silovs was able to go in, get the job done, and do it under enormous pressure. I don't think he'll say he felt the pressure, but I think there's a lot of people in this fan base that went and looked at it and said that, is this kid going to be able to get it done? And like I said before off the top of the show, the Canucks definitely believed in him, because they were able to go into this game knowing that DeSmith probably could have played through it, but they had the confidence in Silovs to get it done. So let's go back into the YouTube chat here and see what everyone's thinking. There's a lot of people with a lot of the stuff, a lot of great things to say here in our chat. Someone watching from Melbourne, Australia, so thank you very much for that. I give Silovs the chance to clinch, says Nux for Cup. If you have at least 3 tries at it, give him at least 1. Someone from our Facebook Live, holy moly, still in shock, LFG. I think that's the collective thought around this fan base right now in this hockey game. I mean, I think going into the third period and the way things were kind of going sideways, Philip Forsberg scoring early in that period to give the Nashville Predators a 3-1 lead. I think a lot of Vancouver Canucks fans were looking at game 5 and saying, okay, well, we can try and take a 3-2 lead here. I myself didn't think the Canucks were going to come back. I know a lot of people watching, especially Eddie Lack as well, didn't think that the Canucks were going to come back in this one. But when you go back and look at it, Eddie, glad they got it done. And I guess for Silovs, the important thing is, as I was talking to you and him about, is he was able to go and get that done and watch his team help lead him to victory, no?
No, exactly. And like, I mean, the win helps with everything. And
Well, that's the thing. I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing, right? Winning trumps all. We could have sat here and you and I could have talked for 45 minutes about Elias Pettersson not doing anything, but we probably won't because they won the hockey game.
Yeah, exactly. And like, yeah, he could have played a couple goals a little different, but like, when you look back at it now, I mean, there's no need. Like, he made enough saves to get the win, right? But I still think that you go back to the Smith if he's healthy for game 5.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that's probably their plan, to be completely honest. So we can sit here and mull about it for the next 48 hours before game 5 on Tuesday. But JT Miller, a guy as well, when the Canucks made that trade here in Vancouver at the draft, took a lot of the flack, signed a massive contract, but he has been absolutely everything as advertised for this team, has he not?
Yeah. I mean, he is their leader at most times. I feel like he is the guy that gets them going offensively. He's just like, when he's on, which like he mostly is, because he doesn't take a lot of nights off, right? And he's the guy that just takes that team, I feel like. And I don't know what's going on in the locker room, etc. But I kind of feel like he's the guy that gets them going in the room as well.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, he leads by example a little bit as well. I think he admitted it. You know, this is his third team now, right? He's been traded twice, so obviously something's got to give there. Eddie, when you look at this Vancouver Canucks team, the way that they're built, the way that they're constructed, you know, if the Stars are going like they were in this game, obviously, you know, things are going well and things tend to go well, but we have to look at it and the secondary, right? The Connor Garlands of the world, the Dakota Joshuas played really well in game 1, but not really there in the other games this series.
No, exactly. And yeah, I mean, there's always going to be parts of the team that clicks and that doesn't click and everything. I mean, it's and like we said before, the win just like takes care of everything, right? But I also feel like you need those guys not every game to like score and contribute on the score sheet and everything, but if they can contribute 2-3 games per series and your superstars take care of the rest, I mean, that's a winning recipe for this hockey team, I feel like.
What do you think is the biggest asset for the Vancouver Canucks? I mean, they're not going to, you get into yourself in trouble. Like,
I was going to say goaltending, but
well, no, exactly, right? I think that you look at it, Thatcher Demko, like before this series started, we sat here and said that there's no way that the Predators are going to beat Thatcher Demko 4 out of 7 games for this Vancouver Canucks team. And then Demko gets hurt, and then Casey DeSmith plays well. And, you know, he ends up obviously winning a game and then losing a game. And then here you have a guy that has to make his playoff debut, who's been the third guy all year long. So this definitely kind of probably is their asset. No, is goaltending.
Yeah, no. And like, I really hope that Thatcher will be back. I mean, I have seen mixed reports on Twitter and everything. But yeah, I mean, this team will definitely beat Nashville with these two guys, but can they get through Edmonton without that Thatcher? I mean, that's highly unlikely, in my opinion. So we need him back. I actually have a healthy knee, so if I can donate it or something, I would really like to. Thatcher, do you want a knee?
I'm not entirely sure Thatcher A wants your knee, and judging by the tweet that you had before the game, but when the game started, that you're willing to give it out. I mean, look, you Demko dismissed, Silovs, you and Lou are trying to do things. Lou's got a busy time in Florida, but I think you're just creeping along here, trying to get back into the mix. No?
No, I know, but he's also busy in the bathroom, as you can see at this photo. So no, but what you can see in the photo, that there's probably like 50, 60 guys ahead of me still. So
No, absolutely. But Eddie, I think in all seriousness, for this Vancouver Canucks team coming back home, you probably thought you were going to lose that game a little bit, maybe in the back of your mind, you bend, but you don't break. And then this team was able to go back and get the win. How much confidence does this group have on that flight home from Nashville? You've done that flight before. It's a long flight coming back to Vancouver. They're on their way back already. And then you get the day, either small practice day tomorrow, maybe an optional, get the legs moving. But you can close out this series here in Vancouver and punch your ticket. How confident is this group now heading into Game 5 on Tuesday night?
Oh, you're bussing. I mean, like, the way that this team feels now, it probably feels like they can't lose, right? Because they've, in my opinion, played probably their worst game of the series, and they still got out with a win, right? So come home to Vancouver, you won one, but you dominated them in the second game there, right? Too, even though you lost. So they're probably really, really confident that they're going to close this out on Tuesday.
Well, it's going to be an interesting one on Tuesday night. And Eddie, I want to thank you for joining me here on Rink Wide Vancouver. You're the best. It was fun to get you in to be able to A, talk goalies, B, see you drinking an Aperol Spritz, because I know you love those, and C, just be able to have this back and forth as you and I have had for years now.
I love it. Thank you so much, brother, for having me on. I love this. Whenever you want to have me on, I'm available.
Thanks, Eddie. All right, that's Eddie Lack, former Vancouver Canuck. He's also had some time with the Calgary Flames, the Carolina Hurricanes, and now he's doing his real estate thing over in Arizona, as well as I think he's a goaltending coach of the Sun Devils hockey team as well. So Eddie's doing a lot of things, but yeah, I mean, he made some really good points about the goaltending and kind of what was going through his mind, and maybe not enough time to think about it was probably a good thing for Silovs. And he goes into this game, he earns his first ever win. But I think more importantly, when you look at it, the Vancouver Canucks, again, take this game by a score of 4-3 in overtime. Elias Lindholm with the overtime winner. They now are returning to Vancouver up 3-1 on this series with Game 5 on Tuesday night in Vancouver. We'll get back on the other side of this. We'll have Jeff Paterson from Nashville. I'm so interested to hear what he has to say. We'll go with the stat that stands out as well. Rink Wide Vancouver's 3 stars and a bunch of other stuff. So stay tuned here on Rink Wide Vancouver. Welcome back to Rink Wide Vancouver as the Vancouver Canucks take a stranglehold a chokehold, whatever you want to call it, on the Nashville Predators. They are up 3-1 coming back to Vancouver for Game 5 on Tuesday night. This portion of the show is presented by the Vancouver Canadians. The Seas are back at the net. Catch fireworks, giveaways, Friday nooners, superstar appearances, all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at canadiansbaseball.com. The Seas head out on the road, but they're back at the net on May 7th for a series of games against Everett. For tickets, call 604-872-5232 or go to canadiansbaseball.com. All right, time to get now to our rink-wide stat that stands out. As we head further into the spring, the stat that stands out is brought to you by Fountain Tire. Tire experts, ask them about their seasonal car care package to help your vehicle in top shape. Find your nearest service dealer at fountaintire.com. The stat that stands out is an interesting one for the Vancouver Canucks. They scored on their first shot of the game. That was Brock Boeser with the opening tally for the Vancouver Canucks. The 13th time in the regular season and the playoffs, the Vancouver Canucks have scored on their first shot of the game. So when you look at it, it's successful. It's not a stat that, screams at you, but it's a stat definitely for us that does stand out. And I don't know the record on the Canucks winning all those games, but it's an interesting one. And usually good things do happen when you start with the lead. Obviously, Brock Boeser with a hat trick, first Vancouver Canuck playoff hat trick since 1996. Trevor Linden was able to go and do that. Rink Wide Vancouver, 3 stars now. Check out Greta Bar YVR, home of the official Canucks Army playoff watch parties with prizes, food, drink specials, a chance to gather with the Army at Greta Bar YVR. No surprise who the first star of this hockey game is. Brock Boeser, 3 shots on goal, 8 shots in total. Brock Boeser was absolutely firing the puck in Game 4. He definitely came to play, much like JT Miller did in Game 3 when he had half of the Vancouver Canucks 12 shots of the game. Brock Boeser, 8 shots for the Canucks. Elias Lindholm, the game-winning goal and 1 assist, and he was 75% in the dot. So obviously another stat for Elias Lindholm is a positive. Another reason why the Canucks acquired him to be dominant in the faceoff circle. Wasn't so good in Game 3, but obviously improved that here in Game 4. Philip Forsberg back on the score sheet for the Predators. 1 goal, 4 hits. So those are your 3 stars presented by Greta. Now, back to this YouTube chat. Everyone, wanting to talk about Brock Boeser and the way that he went out and was able to play this game. There's lots to talk about guys battling injuries and playing through injuries. I just wonder, Brock Boeser had that shot off his hand, had to leave practice earlier. Wonder if he's battling through something there. But nonetheless, he's a guy that went out and had one hell of a hockey game. So you look at it in the way that he went out and did his business, a hat trick for the Vancouver Canucks to help them get through to the next game, which is Game 5 here on Tuesday. East Van Canucks. We survived this defensive gauntlet. We're going to feast in the next round. Yeah, your next round opponent could be the Edmonton Oilers. So I think the Canucks defensively probably want to shore up their game a little bit when you really go back and see it. There are some defensive deficiencies in their game. Quinn Hughes, we saw him doubled over on the bench a little bit. Is he battling through something? I mean, I can't sit here and say that he's 100% healthy. It's just the way that he looks. He's been taking a beating, over 9 hits total from the Nashville Predators in this series against Quinn Hughes. So he's a guy that's definitely gone through some stuff and is probably playing a little hurt. You look at a guy like Ian Cole, a lot of miles on the body there, but, is throwing himself in front of pucks. Is he be able to go and do things? But Nikita Zadorov, a guy that has kind of inserted himself into this series with the physicality. He's getting into scrums. He's doing all sorts of different things to work his way, up in the lineup and play on different pairings as well. So Nikita Zadorov, I got to tip my cap to him because he's a guy that, you wanted to see have some success in the playoffs, and he obviously is. And He's a guy that the Canucks have to think about if they are going to pay or not. Jeff will be joining us from Nashville shortly, so I'm really excited to hear what Jeff Paterson is going to have to say from Nashville. He's been in the room. He's going to talk to you will have talked to the head coaches and or head coach and some players in the room. So without further ado, let's get to it. Let's get to Jeff Paterson, who is in Nashville, covering this game and this team and things like that. Well, I bet you weren't expecting that finish there in Nashville, were you, Jeff?
Well, Irf, good to be with you here from the bowels of Bridgestone Arena, a stunned building. Look, I've been fortunate to cover a lot of events throughout my career. I've never seen anything like that. I've seen overtime in playoff hockey, but I have not seen a team that was left for dead with 3 minutes to go sneak out of town, out the back door of Bridgestone, if you will, with 2 victories here for Music City, USA. The Predators were by far the better team, but you know what? It doesn't matter. At the end of the night and at the end of the series, it's how many wins do you have? And I know we'll get to 4 wins a little bit later on, but it was, and it's funny, I won't name names here, but some media colleagues decided to pack up with about 4 minutes to go in this hockey game and make their way downstairs so they were ready to work the locker rooms. I stayed, Irf. That's the commitment. Nation Network sent me here. I'm here to watch these games. So I will say that I was about 10 seconds away from following their lead because it just did it. I mean, the Canucks had nothing. They had no life. They had 2 shots on goal for the longest stretch of the third period. And you see the desperation and the urgency that they were able to muster. And you think, where was that for 57 minutes of hockey? But in the end, Colton Sisson's post on the empty net, and the Vancouver Canucks, for the second time in this series, come back in the third period. Yeah. And you have to remember game 1. Like, they were down going to the third period and weren't playing particularly well and got the offense they needed then. And that night it was Elias Lindholm and his line that turned the game in their favor. That line remarkably quiet, and Lindholm copped to that. He knew that his line just wasn't making things happen here on the road. They saw a lot of the Ryan O'Reilly matchup, and the matchup game certainly matters. But look, when Lindholm was hurt and out of the lineup and wasn't producing offense, and we cautioned people, he wasn't going to be judged on the regular season. He was brought in to help this team win in the playoffs. And so even if he was quiet for 60 minutes, he rides out of town here tonight as the hero, with Brock Boeser riding shotgun, or maybe Boeser was the hero and Lindholm's riding shotgun, whatever the case. They were at the podium together after the hockey game. But I have to say, room opened, big scrum around JT Miller. And even before the first question was asked, like, you could just see the gleam in his eye. He knew the Canucks got away with 1. And he wasn't afraid to admit it and talked about the fact that they've got to be a hell of a lot better as they go back to Vancouver, because now, against all odds, the way this game unfolded, they have a chance to avoid a return trip to Nashville for a game 6 they want no part of. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Preds bounce back now that their backs are against the wall. But if they play the way they did in this hockey game, and for much of the night, the other night as well, the Canucks are going to have a fight on their hands. Like, I would expect game 5 to look a lot like, these previous games. I think it's going to be close, checking, tight, and not a lot of room. And the Canucks are going to have to find ways to generate their looks. And I did ask Brock Boeser about, is there positive reinforcement from the desperation paid off? But where was that desperation for 57 minutes? And he agreed that, if there's something they can take forward beyond the result, it is knowing that, they have to play with that kind of resolve from the drop of the puck instead of waiting until the issue is forced. But again, still trying to process all here in real time.
Right.
To have been in the building, like, this place was cranked tonight. They thought they were going to celebrate a win out on Broadway on a Sunday night. Third period, in fact, one of the TV timeouts, PA guy didn't say a thing. There was no music in Music City, USA. It was the fans on their feet for 90 seconds, just making all sorts of noise, like they were into it. And you can't imagine how quiet it got in, one shot from Elias Lindholm to win it. So just an incredible event to see firsthand. And for this Vancouver Canuck Hockey Club that really didn't play particularly well, credit to them for grinding to the final. You play to the final buzzer. They did just that. And what a night for Brock Boeser, and what a series it's turning into be for Brock Boeser.
Well, absolutely. And I think the playoffs for Brock Boeser and JT Miller, I mean, those two have been absolute studs. But Jeff, let's start with kind of this day in sequence. You know, the Canucks didn't have a morning skate. You get to the rink. Rick Tocchet has his media availability. We find out that there might be an injury to Casey DeSmith, and then Artur Silovs, now their third goalie that they're going to have to use in this series, gets thrown into the mix.
I almost forgot about all that, Irf, with everything that's gone on here. But you're right. That in itself was a moment. Like, Rick Tocchet has been terrific to deal with from a media perspective. Honest as the day is long. You ask him a question, you're going to get an answer. And to see him sort of squirm at the podium, that was the first indication that something was amiss here. And I asked him, just, lineup changes for tonight. Do you go with the same group that you went with the other night? And he said, well, we're one thing that we're working through. But I didn't ask about the goaltender. And fortunately, one of the Nashville reporters point blank said, is Casey DeSmith going to start this game? And that's when he really started to twist. And that was, the fact that he wouldn't come right out and say, yeah, Smith's our starter, gave us a pretty good indication that something was up with the Vancouver Canucks. But I go back to practice yesterday. They had a 30-minute workout. There was no morning skate, so they didn't want to go 2 days without hitting the ice. I think some people were surprised that maybe they would practice full team practice instead of giving guys day off between games here. But they had everybody out for about 25 or 30 minutes, but 3 goaltenders on the ice. Casey DeSmith worked with Ian Clark and then was full participant. And then after practice, I had the chance to talk to Casey DeSmith because I wanted to follow up about the McCarron hit and the league fining Mike McCarron $2,000, and I got a great reaction. I had a great chat with Casey DeSmith, who sat there and laced up brand new skate laces. The trainers came over, gave him a pack of skate laces. He was lacing up his skates. You lace up your skates because you think you're going to need them. And as it turned out, he didn't need them on this day. So Rick Tocchet told us that the decision was made yesterday, and that Artur Silovs knew that he was getting the start. But yeah, that was wild. And then, of course, Frank Cervelli had the report, and there were other reports as well, that it was going to be Artur Silovs getting thrown in, a guy that hadn't played anywhere in 10 days. He got in the 4 games for the Canucks and then went back to Abbotsford, played 1. And I just asked Tocchet a moment ago, like, for a lot of coaches, you can imagine when you get that news that your first and second stringers are out and you're turning to your third string guy on the road, knowing that the Predators, are going to push to try to even up this series. But keep in mind, like, Rick Tocchet saw Artur Silovs briefly last year when he made his NHL debut and he faced the Rangers and he faced the Boston Bruins. He saw some tough opponents. Then they bring him up late in this year. For a brief moment, he took the net from Casey DeSmith there based on their 2 performances. And he didn't lose in regulation time. He was 3-0-1 in his 4 starts this year. And so I said to Tocchet, like, how much did that body of work and the fact that you had seen Artur Silovs deliver in the National Hockey League for yourself? This wasn't a guy that got called up sort of sight unseen and you were forced to throw him in there. And Tocchet said, absolutely. He said it was amazing that when they learned that DeSmith wasn't available, Tocchet said, like, I was surprised how calm I was and how calm the room was when the news got out there that these guys have faith and confidence in Artur Silovs. And Tocchet talked about his experience at the World Championship last year. I mean, pressure cooker there, playing in front of a home country and delivering with a bronze medal performance. So, pretty laid back guy, doesn't say an awful lot. We had a chance to talk to him after the game, and obviously big smiles all around. But he kind of shrugged it off. It's like, hey, this is my job. This is what I do. This is what I want to do. I want to be in these sorts of positions. And getting thrown in on the road and playoff overtime in your National Hockey League Stanley Cup playoff debut. I mean, the stakes don't get a whole lot higher than that. And good for him. I mean, he gets beaten for 2. Yeah. Certainly not at fault on the Forsberg goal. In fact, I asked him, did he even see it? And he said no, that he had spun to the side and the puck came across, obviously. And he said he didn't even see it and really hadn't seen a replay of it. So he didn't have an opinion whether it was kicked in. Thought it was interesting after the game. Tocchet said he had no problem with it. He said those kinds of goals should count. And he thought that this one deserved to count. Now, if the Canucks had lost and that had turned out to be the game-winning goal, maybe he's got a completely different perspective on the Forsberg goal. Whatever the case, it did count, and you thought that was a dagger. 12 seconds into the third period, 4-on-4, fresh ice. And what a weird night, really. Like, when you look at this game and the fact that it ends 4-3, and there were 2 4-on-4 goals, there were 2 6-on-5 goals, 5-on-5 goals were at a premium in this game. Brock Boeser opened the scoring with a 5-on-5 goal, and obviously Elias Lindholm in overtime, 5-on-5 as well. But 2 games here in Nashville, Irf, and the Canucks scored a grand total of 3 5-on-5 goals. So power play came through for them the other night. JT and Brock riding high, obviously, as the leaders. And then, talked about others. And I think that's code for you. I think we all know what the code is there. But he keeps talking about getting others going. And obviously, Elias Pettersson at the top of that list.
No, of course. And look, let's get to the game a little bit. Brock Boeser scores early, first shot on game. We talked about it. 13th time they've scored on their first shot this season, regular season and playoffs. And then it kind of fell apart for the Canucks. So did you, in that final, maybe 5 minutes, you know what, even with 5 minutes left in the game, Jeff, I really didn't think that the Canucks had it. I thought it was Nashville's to go, but 2:30, 2:50 left. They turned it on. They pulled the goalie. They get the extra attacker. And when you were looking from your vantage point, where did it start to go right there for the Canucks?
Well, I think their best player has finally dug in a little bit. The spin move that Quinn Hughes makes away from Gus Nyquist, he doesn't get a point, but that play doesn't happen without him and his wizardry. And he's clearly not 100%. And Tocchet said that, he knows that the Predators are targeting him, and the big hit, Sissons and Zucker, late in the first period, Hughes missed a shift. In fact, he was sitting at the end of the bench, and I wondered, to start the second period, he was sitting at the end of the bench, and I thought, we may only see him on the power play here. He's still in uniform. He hasn't left the hockey game, but I didn't know how much he was going to play. But there was still enough of that magic that we've seen so often throughout his career left in him. Pettersson gets an assist, the second assist on the tying goal, obviously. But so much of it's JT Miller and really Brock, has just become one of the best net front guys in the National Hockey League this year. We've watched that progress in front of our eyes. This is a guy that used to be a shooter, and now he goes to the tough areas. He stays in the tough areas. He pays a price. He did for his goal the other night on the power play. And for him to stick with it, and he thought that he maybe had the puck roll off his stick on the second one, I think it was, where he wasn't sure. He knew that the stick in the game was on the line basically, and he thought for a brief second that it was going to roll away from him, but was able to get enough to snap it home. So it's put at you're down and you need something to happen. There's not enough guys going right now, but there is enough top-end talent on this team, obviously, to pull through. But, where did it start? I would go back to Colton Sissons off the post. That's just an incredibly fortunate bounce for the Vancouver Canucks that goes in 99% of the time. If that one opportunity, it didn't happen, that's curtains right there. But the Canucks still had some life, and they turned it up ice. And, I don't know how much more punishment Quinn Hughes can sustain here over the long haul of this series. The Canucks now, the best thing would be to take care of business on home ice and maybe get a few days rest before the next series. But I don't want to get ahead of myself the way the Predators are playing here. But I'm just talking about best case scenarios for Quinn Hughes is more downtime, because if they're going to turn around and play again here in a couple of days, he knows that he's going to be a focal point. He's going to get hit and hit hard. And he's not himself. You look at the 1-1 goal, the Jankowski goal, a bit of an unfortunate break. Pettersson tries to play it back to the point. Linesman gets in the way, and then the Preds break out. But Quinn Hughes had the puck in the neutral zone briefly, and he lost the handle on it. And then Nashville was able to pressure in the Vancouver end and work it around the Canucks over. They flooded the one side of the ice and left Lauzon all alone. So, it wasn't a banner night for Quinn Hughes. It wasn't a banner night for Elias Pettersson. But you know what? At the end of the night, on off nights for those guys, others stepped up and pulled through, and they get a victory, and they've got a 3-1 lead in this series.
Yeah, you mentioned Elias Pettersson, and, watching the game on TV, and, everywhere really, I, mentioned and tweeted out thoughts after 40. And you can imagine, Jeff, what those thoughts were from Canuck fans after 40 minutes. And I think when you look at it, when we watched him, the power play, and there were moments in this game where he had the option to shoot, and he just didn't. I think the fans, the coaches, everyone on the team was there. Now, is it injury or what have you? But there was a lot of things that Elias Pettersson wasn't doing. But again, like as you just said, if you win, who really cares? But there is a deeper issue here that if they do get through the Nashville Predators, he's got to be a lot better, and he has to find it here quick.
Yeah, look, they've got a 3-1 series lead, and he has had no impact.
Yeah.
None. He's got 2 points now, but he hasn't been impactful in any way. His line hasn't played particularly well. It's kind of crazy to think that way. And as this game unfolded, I was thinking to myself, well, Philip Forsberg hasn't really done an awful lot for the Predators. He's playing through something as well. Now, he did get his second goal of the series. The first one was a beauty. This one, a fortunate bounce, and you can quibble with whether it should have counted. It did. But, it's not Roman Josi and Philip Forsberg that are beating the Vancouver Canucks. It's guys lower in their lineup. I mean, to get a goal from Jankowski, I think Jeremy Lauzon's had a really nice series on defense, and he led the National Hockey League in hits, and he's been as advertised. And then that fourth line has just been an absolute pack of pests to deal with, led by Mike McCarron, who, and we still don't know if the injury to DeSmith is related to the hit by McCarron behind the net the other night. But, he's bowling over goaltenders. He's getting in goalie's face. He was trash talking Arthur Silovs after a whistle at one point. And then a guy like Kiefer Sherwood, who came into the night leading this series in hits, doesn't shy away, doesn't miss an opportunity. And even Cole Smith on that line. And I looked at, their counterparts on the Canucks, and I think, Phil DiGiuseppe can contribute on the penalty kill, but, I don't think he's been terribly difficult to play against. Sam Lafferty's had a really quiet series to this point. Up until the assist on the Lindholm goal, Connor Garland really had been neutralized and hadn't done an awful lot. And even Dakota Joshua, I mean, the biggest forward that they've got, he had a great first game, but everybody was talking about, $4 million and the meter's going up. Since then, he might have to give some of that money back, because I expect more. The season that he's had looks like a guy that was built for playoff hockey. And quite frankly, he's had very little impact on this series as well. So it was nice to see Lindholm, who'd had a quiet night and a quiet series, come through in the crunch time in overtime. But just getting back to Elias Pettersson, because he is the focal point, not a single shot attempt. Again, some of this would be easier to process if we did find out that he's playing through a significant injury. But he's out there, he's playing, he played 19 minutes in this hockey game. He's out there in the late game situations. You can only go on what you see. I mean, nobody's going to cop to any sort of injuries at this point of the playoffs, but he's practicing every day. Like, he didn't take yesterday off, and so it feels to me like it's way more of a confidence issue. And I posted the video yesterday as he was working on one-timers. There's Sergei Gonchar teeing them up. And a lot of people were like, but the net's empty there and there's no defenseman. And, even the one-timers didn't look all that fluid or clean. So who knows what's going on there? I mean, it's a credit to the group that they are able to win without their 89-point man that, in the regular season had some stretches there where he absolutely was dominant, but it's not happening for him right now. And every game's a new game and a new opportunity, but we've been saying that for far too long now. So your guess is as good as mine as sort of where this goes for Elias Pettersson, but there has to be more to give. I know that his parents were here in Nashville. In fact, a bunch of the Vancouver media crew that's out on the road, we all went out for barbecue last night. We walked into the restaurant. There are the Petties as a family sitting down to dinner. So we didn't go ask if they minded if we joined them. We left them be and went and found our table at the back of the restaurant. But no, he was out with the folks, and maybe needs a little pep talk from dad, whatever the case. You have to hope that there is more on its way from Elias Pettersson, because it seems wild to think that he could go through a playoff game without a single shot attempt.
No, absolutely. And I think that when you look at it, maybe the home cooking is what he's going to get here back at the road instead of the barbecue in Nashville. But Jeff, you look at it, we're here at Rink Wide, obviously thrilled to welcome Bet365, Jeff, as one of our sports betting partners, just in time for the 2024 playoffs. We'll be here with Bet365 to provide you all the news, analysis, lines, betting options for the playoffs until one team is left standing in June. Bet365, the largest sports betting platform globally. Open an account with Bet365 today and use the promo code VANBONUS to bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. It's a couple of the funny things. We looked at the lines before the game, and they moved quite a bit. The Canucks on the money line were plus 110 to win this hockey game. I think it moved even further just before puck drop as well, with the news that Arthur Silovs was making the start for the Vancouver Canucks. But I think that when they come home for game 5 here, Jeff, you can probably put a pretty good bet on it from Bet365 that the Vancouver Canucks will be favored. My question to you isn't how important, because obviously it's going to be important for the Vancouver Canucks to win that game here at home. It's how bad do they need to win this game to get some of their injured guys healthy?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing they want is a 6-hour flight back here to Nashville. The Canucks are flying out right now within an hour, probably jumping on their charter and heading home. Predators are going to overnight, and they'll fly to Vancouver tomorrow, but the Canucks gain a couple of hours moving from the Central to the Pacific time zone, so they should get home at a reasonable hour with the early start here and the fact that overtime didn't take very long to complete this hockey game. But yeah, I mean, look, I think back to 2011, and I know we're going back a ways and not comparing the teams here, but you know, every game you play takes a cumulative toll on your body and collectively on the group. You know, they had a chance to eliminate Chicago in that opening round in 5 and got shelled on home ice and then had to go back to Chicago, lost, and came home and got it right when they slayed the Dragon. But then the next round against Nashville, they had a chance to take care of the Predators in 5 and lost and had to come back here to Nashville. And that was 2 trips to, you know, the middle of the United States geographically that they probably didn't have to take, but ultimately they were forced to. But, you know, if you can eliminate those opportunities and just take care of business, and they've been such a good home ice team all season long. Now the Preds won game 2 in there, so that'll give them a little confidence as they make the trip back to Vancouver. And obviously they're going to be desperate. But yeah, I mean, for me, if you're the Canucks, pull out all the stops, be a whole lot better than you were in both of the games here in Nashville. Now, you know, game 3, they had the lead. And so because the Canucks have been really good all season protecting the lead, I didn't mind sort of the approach there. You know, they had a 2-goal cushion. They forced Nashville to ramp things up. You had score effects. But it was amazing, Irf, that they were down in the third period and had 2 shots on goal with about 3 minutes to play. Like, that was the craziest part to me, that there was no push at all until they got Artur Silovs out of the net for the extra attacker. I thought it was really interesting, too, that at one point Nikita Zadorov was the extra attacker briefly. Yeah. It didn't last too long, but, you know, they wanted the big body, obviously, to go to the front of the net. And look, the coach singled out Zadorov and Cole as 2 guys that have played a fair bit of playoff hockey and get it, and just sort of how competitive they are on every single shift. I didn't think it was Zadorov's best night. He struggled handling the puck a couple of times, of a really juicy giveaway in the first period right up the gut. But he's a gamer, obviously, and a guy that looks like he's built for this. And Ian Cole obviously just shows up and competes and gives you what he can. And, you know, they built this big defense with Soucy and Myers, and maybe dodged a bit of a bullet there when Myers took that puck up in the face in the first period. Also thought it was interesting, and I thought this might be a pivotal point in the game too. I mean, Roman Josi took that deflection of the Teddy Bluger shot in the face and left and didn't play the final 8 minutes of the first period. Did come back, set up Forsberg for the 3-1 goal there early in the third period. But, you know, the Canucks had an 8-minute stretch there where Roman Josi was in the locker room and they couldn't take advantage of a guy that's logged a ton of ice time and is truly a driver of offense for this Nashville hockey club. But again, you know, I think the Canucks have done a pretty good job. When I look at the statistics through 4 games here, like, they haven't allowed Roman Josi to have a big-time breakout game. And, you know, this is a guy that finished 3rd in scoring among defensemen in the National Hockey League behind Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar. So, for the most part, they've tried to finish checks on Josi. They have limited his offensive contributions. And, you know, we'll see if they can do that again as the series shifts back to Vancouver for Game 5.
The ebbs and flows in hockey games and covering hockey is one of the reasons why we love doing it. So with so much, you know, angst amongst the fan base when the Canucks lose a game, there's a lot of, you know, happiness and triumph when they do win. So our YouTube chat is absolutely lit with everybody having so many different things to say. Lefty All Around has actually been in the chat, you know, all show long. You know, he said Brock Boeser, but I think one of the points that he made here is, you and I can talk about it. You know, Brock's a guy that everyone ran out of town for a few years now. I think a credit to him is how much his hockey IQ has improved, Jeff. That's one of the points that, you know, Lefty All Around made is, you know, he's getting into those different areas, as you mentioned, 16 of his power play goals this season, but they're all from those areas in tight. And you look at here in Game 4, all his goals except for one were basically in tight.
Yeah, and I think, you know, until you've done it, you haven't done it. And I know he had 40 in the regular season, but the playoffs are a different animal. And not that I doubted him, but I wanted to see if he could continue what he had done to get to the 40-goal mark. And the answer is yes, as he's up to 4 now with the hat trick here tonight. I loved his first goal. I mean, obviously the 2 tying it up were the important ones for the Canucks, but I just loved the the set play. Face-off win back to Soucy. JT drifts out to the side, draws 3 guys to him. We talked about the Canucks kind of getting lost in coverage on the 1-1 goal, but Preds definitely did. And JT is such a good playmaker. I think it's an underrated part of his game. And he sees Brock over there Brock hung tough off the faceoff, just kind of stayed in his spot. And he said after at the podium that really all he wanted to be was an outlet for Soucy if Soucy wanted to dump it down the wall. But Soucy zips it over to Miller across to Boeser, and Boeser wasn't going to miss from that spot. So, that one a little bit more from distance, but the 2 late in the game, obviously he goes hard to the net, stays there, stays with the play, doesn't quit on it, second effort, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, getting rewarded. And it is crazy to think that the Canucks tried to give him away and couldn't. And they're pretty glad, I think, right about now. And I know Brock is too. He wanted to be in Vancouver. His heart was in Vancouver. He talked about that an awful lot. And on a night like tonight, this is a night that these guys won't forget. I know that, the journey isn't done by any stretch, but years from now, it was that kind of comeback to be down 3-1 with 3 minutes to play and leave with a 4-3 victory in overtime. A pretty special night, I think, for the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, the Brock stock definitely rising as he's going to be due for a contract here at some point soon too. So interesting to see. And obviously the game that he had was absolutely wild. You mentioned Quinn Hughes and the injury. Now, obviously he's battling through something. Captain Canuck, regular viewer on YouTube. Irf, please mention to Jeff that I think that Hughes needs to shoot the puck more. It seems like something always happens when Hughes is shooting the puck, rebounds and scoring chances, but also things happen when he absolutely dangles defensemen or forwards at the blue line. And that's one of the things that he did really well here tonight.
Yeah, another player that didn't have a shot on goal. He did have 4 attempts, 2 were blocked and 2 went wide. And he's had some nights in this series where, the one night when the Canucks had 84 shot attempts, he had 13 of them. So he was shooting the puck a little bit more earlier in the series. Again, he's playing hurt. There's no question. I can't put a percentage on where he is, but it's nowhere close to 100. And all these guys, after a long season, they all have bumps and bruises to some degree. I know the training staff after the game had players on the table in the training room there working on guys immediately after the game. And then they've got a long flight home. So Quinn's doing what he can, but I think we've all watched him enough to know when he's dialed in, when he's controlling games, when he is, making guys miss like he did ultimately with Nyquist on the tying goal. But there isn't enough of that. And I think the sort of the purest answer I can give to the question is you're getting a sense of how valuable he is when he's not at 100%, because the Canucks are having trouble breaking the puck out. The Predators are able to get in, establish their forecheck, even when he is on the ice. And, his biggest superpower is tilting the ice in the Canucks' favor and spending virtually all of his shifts in the offensive end. He's had to defend a little more than I'm sure he would have liked, and certainly the Canucks would like. But I don't know that that's going to change an awful lot, because 43's got a target on his back, on his front, on his side, on his helmet. Predators are coming. They're sending 2 guys after him, and you saw that with the Zucker and the Sissons hit, but we also saw him get double-teamed the other night as well. So any opportunity they get to run Quinn Hughes, they're taking it, and that just comes with the territory of being a star in the playoffs.
No, absolutely. And Jeff, I want to get to 4 wins. This portion of Rink Wide presented by 4 Winds Brewing Company, a family-owned and operated business in Delta. Come check out the 4 Winds Brewing tap room and kitchen located in the Tilbury area, serving beers, burgers, and their famous tacos every day from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Or check out their product line online at 4windsbrewing.com. 4 wins, Jeff. The Canucks are 1 win away from 4 wins. So we'll start there and the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, it's been a strange series. I'm not convinced that the better team has won 3 of the 4 games, but the Vancouver Canucks have a 3-1 lead as they head home. So they got a chance to clinch on home ice. And boy, you got to go back to 2011 to find the last time the Vancouver Canucks won a playoff series. In fact, it was the Western Conference Final that year against San Jose. They haven't won a playoff series, at least in the conventional playoffs, I guess the bubble, but just with fans in the stands and the true playoffs. It's been a long, long time. And obviously we know how they advanced to the Stanley Cup Final that year with the confetti falling from the rafters and the stanchion goal. So a chance to clinch on home ice. I don't know if it'll look like that, but they've got the opportunity in front of them. the Dallas Stars somehow, well, I'd say somehow, they played well. That game went to overtime. Obviously, they get a win, so they're back in their series. Winnipeg in a world of hurt and got beaten up badly by Colorado, so the Avs on the verge of, and it's hard to call that an upset when you look at the talent that the Avs have, but they were the lower seed in that series, but Colorado with a 5-1 win, so they're up 3-1, and then on the other side of the bracket, Florida, with a 3-1 lead on Tampa. The Bolts stayed alive there. The Boston Bruins obviously up 3-1 as the Leafs are imploding and yelling at each other and throwing stuff at each other and throwing tantrums. And the New York Rangers do have a chance here to eliminate the Washington Capitals. The Rangers can be the first team to 4 wins in this opening round, and then maybe they could spend some time at 4 wins, but they'd have to make a long trip to get there. Whatever the case, the Vancouver Canucks 1 win away from 4 wins in this playoff series, and that's what it takes to eliminate the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, Jeff, the one final question from you as we kind of put a bow on this game from Nashville. I mean, you're there, you're covering the practices, you're at the games, you're at the morning skates, you have that great video of Elias Pettersson shooting, we're able to get it on and see that he does in fact shoot the puck. But when you look at this team right now, I mean, people are saying maybe they backed in and probably didn't deserve to win this hockey game, but what was your biggest takeaway from being in the room and interacting with the players and obviously hearing from Rick Tocchet?
Yeah, I think you got to give them credit. Down in the third period in 2 of these games, and they have found the resolve necessary. And if you're the Predators, if you've got a lead in the third period in game 5, like, I'm sure some doubt in your mind, like, how do you get this across the finish line? Because the Canucks, even if they haven't played particularly well, have had enough left in that tank to ultimately find a way to claw back and get the victory. This one took overtime. I kind of jokingly said to some of the media colleagues along press row, boy, this was a long way to come to see the Canucks score 1 5-on-5 goal. And that's what it was when Brock Boeser had the only goal and it was 3-1. Ultimately, they score a pair of 6-on-5s, and then the Lindholm goal was a 5-on-5 goal as well in OT, but still a long way to come to see them score 2 5-on-5 goals. So, offense has been at a premium, and it hasn't been a series dominated by stars outside of Brock Boeser and JT Miller. On the Predators side, we talked about the fact that Forsberg and Yossi haven't done an awful lot. Nyquist scored his first, and that was a pretty goal off the rush. But, the top line of the Predators has not torched the Vancouver Canucks. When you look at the game that the Preds won, Sisson's got a goal. Beauvillier with that tip goal to open it. So there isn't a Nashville Predator player that has really risen to the challenge. And I think the other thing that there's so much focus on the Canucks goaltending situation, and rightly so. Juuse Saros' save percentage in this thing is not very good. And I would say to the Canucks, if you've got a guy that isn't stopping a lot of pucks, guess what? Put a few more on him. Test him. Challenge him. Because he's struggling. Like, the numbers bear that out. He came in with an 880 save percentage, and I haven't done the update, but what did he give up? 4 goals on 23 shots in this hockey game, or 20 shots? Well, I'm not even sure what the final shots on goal is. 20.
20,
4 goals on 20 shots. Like, that's not getting it done either. So, not the Predator. They're not going to go away from Juuse Saros. He's their guy. I'm not suggesting that, but I am saying that the Vancouver Canucks catching a little bit of a break in, there was talk of this incredible goaltending matchup at the outset with Thatcher Demko and Juuse Saros, and 2 guys that can steal games and steal series, and both have been all-stars and all that kind of stuff. There was also a question about Juuse Saros played more games and started more games in the NHL this year than any other goaltender. And, you look back to last year, I think there were 7 guys that started 60 or more games in the National Hockey League, and 1 got out of the first round. And it just feels like teams are redlining these guys a little too much. There was already talk about Demko's workload in Vancouver, and obviously he was forced to take some rest there with the knee injury. But you do wonder, just in today's day and age, the workload, how good the shooters are, are you wise to run a guy out that often, knowing that if you're going to be a team that wants to get on any sort of playoff run, you're going to need your number 1 guy to be dialed and ready and rested and, all that come playoff time. And I don't know. I'm not around Juuse Saros and the Predators enough, but I do think it's fair at least to ask, you lean on him more than any goaltender in the National Hockey League. You get to the playoffs with this travel in this series, and he really hasn't held up his end of the bargain. I do think that goaltending has been a story on both sides for much different reasons, obviously. But the Vancouver Canucks now have 3 guys that have a win in this. Like, that's crazy. We're 4 games into this, and 3 goalies have a victory for the Vancouver Canucks.
No, it's wild. And I think look, the Canucks are on their way back. They must feel pretty good about themselves, but you escaped that one and you get the win, and now you have a chance to end this series here at home. Time now for Rink Wide Worldwide. It's one of those things, Jeff, that you introduced me to once I started doing these shows with you that has quickly become one of my favorite things to do now, is seeing where people tune into these shows. I now had some people from Melbourne, Australia in the YouTube chat earlier, but again, just another one of those things to go, and goes to show you the reach of Canucks Nation and how large it actually is.
Yeah, and it was funny. We were out on the town last night here in Nashville, ran into a guy in one of the establishments on Broadway that was here to watch the Canucks, said that he listens and watches Rink Wide as well. So even when we're out on the road, still running into Rink Wide listeners and viewers. And, there wasn't a huge Canuck contingent, and I've had the chance to travel this league, and there are Canuck fans wherever you go. And I know that the Predators took some measures early on that didn't allow Canuck fans to first crack at tickets through Ticketmaster, so you'd have to get them on the secondary market. There were Canuck fans here. I'd say there were probably 25 or 30 that were, and these are the ones wearing jerseys that are easily identifiable in the warm-up. But, when the Canucks scored, you could hear pockets of this building, obviously, and certainly it got quiet in overtime, and then, there were some cheers going up as well. You could hear those because Predator fans were aghast. They just couldn't believe what they had seen here. So, yeah, I mean, you look at our map that we've got: Exeter, England, Delhi, in India. You said Melbourne, down under. So Canuck fans are everywhere, and we know that they're going to be out in force at Rogers Arena for a Game 5 in a clinching scenario when this series shifts back to Vancouver. Now, I mentioned the Canucks are flying out this evening, and then the Preds will fly tomorrow. I would think at this stage of the series, full off-ice day for both teams on Monday, and then maybe an optional skate ahead of game number 5. But, now you're getting to a point of the series where rest is every bit as important as the tactical stuff. You can do that in video and in meetings. You just need your players to be as fresh as possible. Now, overtime didn't take a physical toll because it didn't last very long, but certainly some mental baggage, I would imagine, in the cargo hold of the Predators plane as they come to Vancouver, knowing that they let one get away here tonight.
Absolutely. A 4-3 win for the Vancouver Canucks in overtime. Brock Boeser with the hat trick. Elias Lindholm with the game-winning goal in overtime, as you mentioned, Jeff. Game 5 here on Tuesday night. Looking forward to having you back here in this studio post-game. As much as it's been great on the road and you get all the stories, but we're back together Tuesday night.
I hope so. I'm certainly planning to have that happen, but I should say that there's no easy way to get home from Nashville flying commercially. Canucks will charter, so they'll be able to fly straight. I went through Dallas. Lots of guys went through Chicago. Some went through Denver. My connection was through Dallas. And I don't know if you've seen the weather in Texas. Tornado warnings galore for the next 24 hours. Apparently flights in and out of Dallas-Fort Worth already being impacted. So I may be joining you from the airport or an airport hotel. I hope not. I want to get home. It's been fun here in Nashville, but long travel day ahead on Monday. I hope that there aren't any weather and delay issues, but that's out of my control now. So we'll see, but should be back in time for game number 5, regardless what tomorrow and the weather gods throw my way.
Absolutely. Well, we're looking forward to it, Jeff, and maybe we'll throw another one of those Jeff Patterson, headshots on the Rink Wide Vancouver logo. But thank you so much for this, as obviously your contributions to not only this show, but Sekeres and Price, Canucks Army, and Canucks Conversations don't go unnoticed. But for Jeff Paterson, I'm Irfaan Gaffar. The Vancouver Canucks up 3-1 in their series against the Nashville Predators after a 4-3 Game 4 win in overtime in Nashville.